You know exactly how this call goes. The phone rings and they say, yeah, it's just a standard key. Simple job, right? Well, let's jump right into this explainer because we're looking at a massive money leak happening every single day in the automotive locksmith business. We're going to dig into your workflow to find exactly where your profit is literally slipping through your fingers. And spoiler alert, it's usually happening right there on the customer's driveway.
So here is a hard truth that every single owner-operator needs to hear. You did not lose money because the customer argued. You lost money because your notes did not prove the job changed. When a customer pushes back on that final price, it's almost always a symptom of a much deeper documentation problem.
You see, when you give that simple phone quote, the customer naturally remembers the absolute cheapest, simplest version of the estimate. It's just human nature. That number gets securely anchored in their mind as the final price, regardless of the reality you actually find when you pull up to the vehicle.
Okay, let's look at Section 1, the simple phone quote, setting the baseline expectation.
Which leads us right into Section 2, when the job changes, the on-site reality.
The moment you step out of your van, the scope of the job can instantly shift. The real-world conditions completely contradict that simple phone call. Maybe it's a totally different vehicle identity, or they casually hand you a cheap aftermarket part they bought online, or, and this is a big one, there's a lack of proper NASTF-aligned ownership authorization. Just like that, your baseline expectation is totally out the window.
This brings us to a fundamental rule you absolutely must remember. The phone quote is not the job. The job is what you documented as conditions changed. If you don't get written approval for extra work, consumer protection guidelines, like those from the Texas and Washington Attorneys General, note that you could be stuck defending and only getting paid for that original, cheaper quote.
Let's move on to Section 3, the cost of bad notes, measuring the money leak. Let's look at some example business math to see how this builds into a real financial problem. Picture this. The conditions change. The price should go up, but your notes are vague. So just to smooth over the argument, you cave and give a $20 to $40 example discount. Well, that single discount just erased your entire profit margin. You practically did the work for free. This brilliantly illustrates the time cost of the mistake. Taking just a 6-minute intake note perfectly protects you from a massive 45-minute argument sweating it out on the customer's driveway. You're basically trading 6 minutes of simple workflow discipline for lost margin and a frankly terrible customer experience. Do the math with me here and look at the yearly impact. If a vague note causes just one example callback or discount a week, you're looking at 52 lost profit margins over a year. The yearly cost of this mistake becomes much, much bigger than the cost of simply adopting better workflow discipline on every single job. Let's jump to Section 4. Good notes protect everyone. The documentation shield. Listen, good documentation isn't just an administrative chore. It's a shield. We never want to make the customer the villain. They really aren't scammers. Psychology just dictates they remember the cheapest quote. So we rely on clear, professional records to bridge that expectation gap between their memory and your on-site reality. This is exactly why federal and state consumer protection agencies, like the FTC and state attorneys general, all stress these core principles. You absolutely must document the specific scope of the job, clearly define the parts, like making sure you distinguish between OEM and aftermarket components, and get explicit approval before adding any charges. Next up is Section 5, the Essential Job Checklist, 9 Steps for Job Security. To stop this money leak once and for all, it starts with proper intake. Step 1, identify the vehicle and check that VIN. Step 2, accurately document the customer's exact concern. And Step 3, verify proper ownership authorization and ID status, which is absolutely critical under NASTF guidelines. Then document the on-site conditions the second you arrive. How many keys actually exist right now? What are the exact symptoms? Where did the parts come from? Are they dealer-sourced or customer-supplied? Finally, clearly state what that original quote actually assumed the job would be. And here's the most important part. If anything changes from that original assumption, you must document the new scope. You've got to get explicit customer approval for that change. And always record a final completion note or a declined work note if they choose not to proceed. Finally, let's look at Section 6, Organize with AutoSmith Pro, your workflow memory layer.
Managing all this data on paper just isn't scalable. AutoSmithPro.com is the place to organize your vehicle lookups, keep detailed source notes, and actually run your current job checklist. It's literally your shop's memory layer, so you never have to relearn the same fob question twice. It just makes your next quote that much better.
Now, it's really important to be clear about what this system is and isn't. This isn't some magic programming tool or a bypass method. It absolutely does not replace OEM procedures, licensing, or NASTF credentialing. Rather, it's that essential job memory and workflow layer, ensuring your shop never repeats a costly quoting mistake.
So before you head out to your next call today, ask yourself, will your notes actually prove the scope changed, or will you just give away another $50 to escape an argument? Take control of your workflow and definitely check out AutoSmithPro.com for more automotive math and locksmith business tools. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and here's to protecting your profit.